Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And thank you for hanging in there. And so, welcome to the stage, Mr. Jan Verbeek from the Netherlands. Hey,
Hello,
how are you?
everyone. So good to see you
Hello,
again,
hello.
Seb.
Yeah, likewise. Been a while.
It's
Huh?
definitely been a while. I think well over a year now.
Mm-mm. So, how are you feeling in this moment? Because I'm not sure if if you were here in the beginning, but I was saying,
Mhm.
this is a new situation for me. Maybe I've done this one time before. I was feeling tiny bit of butterflies in my chest as I started it. So, since I guess you've not been in this situation, I'm wondering how you feel in this moment.
Um, I felt a little bit of racing heart, but it was just a little bit. And I
Hmm.
notice now as we're talking, it's kind of fading away. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we have 48 minutes, so we better get into
I mean,
it.
it's not a disaster if it's like 5 minutes longer, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll be respectful of your time, though.
Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, appreciate you doing this. It's great. Much
No worries. Yeah,
appreciated.
I'm very, very happy that you, or very happy, I feel very honored that you also asked me to do this.
Hmm.
So,
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, if you see me looking at a screen and you think he's probably reading things, you're right. So, I have a bunch of questions. Um, yeah, so let's start off with can you explain what your social anxiety was like before the club, before tapping?
well, before the club or before tapping?
Hmm, both?
Um, yeah, I think first of all, it would be helpful for everyone that I share like quickly my story, kind of in terms of like how it went and how things got better and what worked and what didn't work. Um, because at first tapping didn't really seem to work for me. I worked with Seb prior to this club, and yeah, somehow it didn't really seem to work. And I don't really know what it was, but I think it was just the way my life was structured at that point in time, where there was just a complete lack of discipline and routine. That's well, actually, I that's something I really need. So somehow it didn't really seem to work. I mean, there was a lot of emotion during our sessions we had, but somehow there were not really results. And this was something that scared me a lot because I was like, what if this never goes away?
Who can
Yeah, and
relate to that? Who can relate to that? Yeah. What if this never goes away?
yeah, well,
Right. Hmm. Right.
definitely, definitely. Um, well, to cut a very long story short, then eventually I just kept on tapping, kept on working with Seb later, and I, oh, this was thank you. This is Dutch. This was a few years. This was a few years later, and then I joined the club. But I really think that the club is what made a lot of changes to my anxiety, and yeah, like I would say, really changes that were yeah, that are still here today.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into a couple of things. So, it's good to understand what the social anxiety was like for you. It's also kind like there's people here on the call that are actually completely new, and they might not even have heard anyone ever share what their social anxiety what is like.
Okay.
So they've never heard someone else because it's such a big secret
Yeah, yeah,
typically,
yeah,
right? Nobody talks about it. So
yeah.
what was it like for you? How did you experience social anxiety?
It was very unpleasant, as I'm sure that everyone here can relate. Uh, yeah, it really caused my life to be limited in many different ways. I would get like triggered left, right, and center if I was just going for like groceries and stuff. If I would be like talking with friends, I could suddenly get triggered. There were certain topics that were kind of off limits for me. Like, no, we're definitely not gonna touch upon this topic. There were many things I wanted to do that I couldn't do, that I didn't do, or that I couldn't do as much as I would like to do. For example, starting like a new sport, because there would be like many different people and I wouldn't know these people. And yeah, it was just limiting my life in so many ways. Yeah.
Can you think of like a specific social situation um, that would be very difficult for you?
Many, but
Uh-huh.
you were asking a specific one, so I'll give you a specific one. Parties,
Okay.
parties.
And what would happen if you went to the party, or, if you got an invite? What were thoughts that you were having? What did you experience physically? How did it go when you would end up at the party?
First thing, if I would get an invite, was like, okay, if the party starts at, just making this up, party starts at 8, at what time do I need to start drinking in order to
Mm,
alleviate the anxiety? Um, that's that was certainly one of my main coping strategies.
mhm,
If I were at the party, typically what would happen, it depends a bit. So if I was drinking, I would be relatively fine, although it could get to the point where I was drinking too much, and then I would do like then I would do like like really dumb stuff, and then the next day I would be like, oh Jesus, what did I do? I mean, and then it would like kind of be worse. But if there was no alcohol, it would be very, very awkward for me. Like I was like really having the impression that I was like very weird, and that people were definitely like noticing that. And people were like, yeah, like this is like a guy who's like so strange and stuff. While well, that was all like in my mind. I mean,
mm,
yeah, it's kind of like in some way, at least that's what I feel like now. It's quite like arrogant to think that you really know what other people, um, well, yeah, yeah. So basically, what other people think of you, and yeah. But anyway, I was like really, really sure that people were like not liking me. People were like rejecting me, and they wouldn't want to talk with me. And I was like, oh, that was also quite a big one. I was like, okay, if I would like run into this person, what would happen then? Um, so yeah. Anyway, as you can all hear, a lot of fear, a lot of
mm.
anxiety, and a lot of um, yeah, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
that.
And how did that make you feel if you were thinking those kinds of things? What if they don't like me? What if they don't this? What if they don't that?
um, Anxious, ashamed. I would have like many issues as well with like shame. So yeah, I would say like mostly shame. Yeah, I would say it was probably mostly shame that I would feel. I would be like, yeah, I'm such a like weird person and stuff, and yeah, that makes you feel very small. Yeah, and very sad and very lonely. And I really feel that this club is what also helped to put things in a better perspective. That there are actually like many people who are like this, who are like feeling like very lonely and very ashamed or very anxious or like all of that. And like just like hearing these stories makes you feel like less lonely. And I think, yeah, that's extremely helpful.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, what was your biggest issue? Do you remember? What was your biggest issue with the anxiety? Like some people, it
Yeah.
stands out, and they have a particular thing
Yeah.
that's different for different people. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's like, well, for me, it's facial blushing, or for
Yeah.
me, it's like shaking, or
Yeah.
for me, it's whenever I'm the center of attention, or for
Mhm.
me, it's authority, or do you know? Did you have such a thing?
I had many, as you perhaps recall. I had like
Mm.
huge issues with eye contact. That would be like a really big one. Like eye contact, that would like really be, as you put it once so nicely, one of my big obsessions.
Mm.
Like, um, yeah, that was like a big one. Eye contact. Just
How
like
did you think about that? What would go through your head in terms of eye contact when you'd be in a social situation?
ooh, there would be many beliefs like I have to come across as strong, I have to come across as like confident, and like stuff like that. Like actually, like so many beliefs like that. And well, if you don't feel that way, this is also what I learned in the club. This is also what I really like so much about the club. It allowed me to get like so much insight into my own personality and in my own suffering, into my own psychology in this way. Because if you have this belief, like I have to come across as like really confident, or like I have to make like really strong eye contact, while inside you're feeling like really weak and small and ashamed, then it's like, it's kind of impossible to be calm
Mm.
well, at a party, for example.
Exactly, it makes it even worse.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, and when you did feel anxiety, what was your attitude towards it?
I wouldn't accept it. I would like try to like push it away, which was like a very bad very bad strategy, because it would only make it worse. Um, and I think that, speaking of these beliefs that I just mentioned, also what were like really like big beliefs for me that caused a lot of anxiety, which are like pretty much, well, at least for me, they were pretty on the surface, like pretty easy to just do some tapping on and to get rid of them. Were beliefs like I shouldn't get anxious, other people shouldn't see me anxious. Um, these kind of beliefs in many different many different situations, like parties, or at um, I don't know, at work, at school, whatever. These beliefs were like really big, that would cause a lot of anxiety, because then, as you also explained, well, to me and to the other perhaps previous members of the clubs so well, if you have these kind of beliefs and then you do get triggered, it's like, then it kind of gets worse, because, well, there's this rule, and well, you are not living up to your own rule, and that creates more anxiety and more um shit, essentially. Sorry, let me just close my door for 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise it's getting a bit too cold. We're in the Netherlands, it's already not so warm,
Uh-huh.
so
Okay. How did you feel about your chances of overcoming it? And what did you try? Did you try any other things?
I did try some exposure, which did work. Like I would like go to a shopping mall and just like lay on the floor and be like, okay, this is normal. Obviously, it's not so normal to be laying on the floor in the shopping mall. And I have to say, it did work. But as you also just mentioned, with these kind of approaches, I can also confirm that these results were only temporary. You know,
Mm.
like maybe, well, that day it would be like amazing, like, oh, look at me. And then the next day it would have been like a lot less, and after 2 days it would have been gone. So that's in regard to other approaches. In terms of how I felt about overcoming it, well, I was like really hopeless at some points. I was like, is it really possible for me to overcome this? Because, like I said, um, well, actually I didn't say this. So I think that around the age of, what was it, like 18? I'm 26 now, for everyone listening. So when I was 18, I discovered your podcast, and already then I kind of knew, or I have to say, already before that, I knew that there was something. Well, I don't want to say like wrong with me, but let's say there was something that was not going so well, and made me feel like crap all the time. But I couldn't really like, just kind of, uh, how do I say that? I couldn't like
pinpoint what it was.
exactly. That's the word what I'm looking for. Then I discovered your podcast, and I was like, hey, it's anxiety, and well, your story made like a lot of sense to me, and I was like, okay, this seems like a very coherent story, like in terms of like how you can use EFT to overcome it. It seemed like honest and very logical as well. And I was like, okay, this sounds really good. I'm gonna do some coaching. This was back in the days where you were still doing like mostly the private coaching sessions, and I'm gonna get rid of this. Well, not really, unfortunately. So we did some work together, and I really have to say this with also with Seb's best intentions, and also with my best intentions. It didn't really work out. Like for some reason, again, I'm not sure exactly what it was. Um, but this was, I think, around 2016, 17. Um, then yeah, these years after that, where yeah, there was just like a lot of anxiety. I would be like drinking a lot to kind of like quell myself, not quell myself, but to kind of alleviate myself of these symptoms, and that I could still like have like a reasonable social life. But still there would be like a lot of anxiety, like a lot of insecurity. And it was really not until I got enrolled in the club,
Mm.
that I saw like significant changes. And I think also because the club is like structured in such a way. I mean, this was back in 2020, 21. I'm looking, yeah, it was about that time. It was not the first, but it was the second version of the club.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I'm very sure that as Sebastiaan is very committed, that now it's even like the structure is even better than it was. But back then, I feel that like now, even for someone like me, and as you can see, I have to laugh a little bit, but I'm not saying this lightly, because it was like a really, really big thing for me. And I felt like so hopeless. And I was like, I'm never gonna overcome this. And I'm very sure that this club helped me so much. Yeah.
And what are your results now
In terms
in
of
terms of like how's your experience socially now?
very good, very good. I have to say, like, I noticed that in this moment, I'm not completely 100% at ease. But
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I'm sharing something very, very personal, and I'm like, this is not something I'm doing every day, believe it or not. So,
Right.
of
And we
course,
also asked you this yesterday to do this live.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because it was kind of like a last minute uh, consideration to do. It's like we should actually do something live.
Yeah, no, it's
So
it's a really good idea. Like actually,
mm,
I really liked it all, and now this is a really good example of what you just said. So, well, first of all, because you reached out to me, I think like some months ago, like if I would be interested to do like an interview, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm now a bit busy, but we can do it later. I would have never said yes to that. Like
mm,
doing something like that. That would be like, okay, I'm gonna discuss about my issues with like people who I don't know, and I'm gonna like put myself out there. I'm like, that is impossible. And now I'm like, nah, I mean that's not impossible. I was like when I read your email a couple of months ago, I was like, oh, that's like actually a really nice idea to basically do that. And and then of course also yesterday, then you or Leah sent me like, hey, is it perhaps possible to do it live? And I was like, sure, why not? Whereas in the past it would be like, I'm really not sure now. Now this is already like this interview, and now it's live. I mean, there's
mm,
so many things that can go wrong, and I was like, I mean, there are things that go wrong, but I'm not like really bothered by that. I think also because of all the tapping we did in the club and all the tapping I did for myself, which were like so many hours, but it was all definitely worth it. That now I'm like with so many outcomes, I'm like, okay, and I'm well, you know. So, and
mm,
that is
mm.
very different from the places I've been in the past. Yeah.
So You said that you felt you had a lot of fear. You were scared of a lot of things. You worried about people not liking you and people thinking that you're a weirdo and that kind of stuff, and that was associated with a lot of shame.
Yeah,
How's it now socially and relationship wise? How do you feel and what do you experience?
very good question. Um, well, I will not say that I've overcome it completely.
Hmm.
That is not the case. The reason for that is not because I don't want to or that I feel like it's impossible, but it's just my life is like very pleasant as it is right now. I feel like I can do the things I want to do. I don't have problems at work that I get triggered around my boss. Although recently, perhaps this is also something good to share with everyone, because I think the last time I got triggered like more intensely was a long time ago, like, well, 5 months, and this was when I started living like in a new country where I didn't really speak the language. Was trying to speak the language, which is quite like triggering, of course. At least for me, it was.
Yes.
Um, but anyway, so then I got triggered. I worked on that, but then it was actually just last week. Sorry, Seb, for this little detour, but I feel like
That's okay. Go
I can
ahead.
add some value. I was at work. And my boss came to me. He was like, please join this meeting tomorrow with my boss and like some other managers. So I was at a meeting with my boss and the boss of my boss and some other bosses. And my boss was saying something which was not true. And I was, well, basically pointing that out. I was like, hey, you're saying this and this. And then I suddenly got like triggered. I like, this is yeah. So I was saying like, hey, this is actually not right, what you were saying. And then I suddenly noticed like this anxiety in me, and I was like,
Mm.
huh, this like real, or am I like dreaming, or because I was like a bit surprised that it happened. Luckily, I could like uh, I could like just focus my attention outwardly and just like end it quite quickly. But then I made like this mental note, and I was like, okay, as soon as I'm home, I'm gonna look into this, because apparently if I'm disagreeing with my boss in front of his bosses, which can be quite triggering if you, like me, suffered from anxiety, like very severe anxiety for a long time. There is still something there, but then, and this is also like because of all the inner work that that I did, I noticed I got triggered, and whereas in the past that anxiety would stay around for like a really long time and a lot of judgments, I got triggered. I noticed it. I was like, okay, this is anxiety. It's all good. Then the conversation continued in the meeting, and it was gone.
Mm.
And that was very different from the past. Um, but I think I still didn't answer your question how my social life is now. Talking so
No, I
much.
think no, I think you did. I mean, it's a good example. For one, you're saying that you didn't get triggered for 5 months or something, and
Yeah,
that something came up that triggered you, and that typically you don't feel anxious around your boss anymore,
yeah,
and
yeah,
at work. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. Now it's like it sounds a bit weird, because I remember when I was in the club, where I was considering to join the club, and like hearing from people, well, who were back then already in my situation now, so who had been through all of this. I would be a bit like hesitant, like, is that like really possible for me? Blah blah blah. And I just lost my train of thought there. Well, this is also something that that I would be like really afraid of to happen in the past, but now I just lost it. Wait, what did I want to say? Um, Talking about my social life, and then I lost it. Let's just continue with.
Okay, good. Let me just point this out. So there are different stages along the journey, and I just put this together maybe 4 years ago. That um, there's 5 stages on the journey, and at stage zero, you are very anxious. You're upset about the fact that you get anxious. You're worried that you'll never overcome it. You're totally stuck. You've tried a whole bunch of things. Nothing seems to work. You feel pretty much hopeless. There's a tiny bit of hope, but you feel really out of control. The anxiety is just happening and you don't have any ways to address it. To all the way to the other side, where there's effortless social ease, where you just connect with people, where you're in the moment, you're present, you make eye contact, you feel good, you enjoy yourself, you actually like socializing. It's not something that's draining you, it's something that's energizing you. You're not worried about how you come across. You accept whatever people think of you. You have the social life that you want, and it's the dream ticket. So that's stage 5. And then there are stages in between. And wherever you're at, like I initially thought, okay, I only should release interviews of people that are totally at stage 5 of the journey. But that is a mistake, according to this person that told me this, because some people cannot relate to that. It's too far from their believability. But it's better that you show people at stage 3 or stage 4 as well, because people can go, okay, well, I don't think I can make it all the way there, but it might just be possible that I can reduce my anxiety. And instead of feeling it all the time, I'll just feel it sometimes. That I can see as something more possible. So that's a pre-frame. And then what Jan was just saying, I haven't gotten triggered in 5 months or so. And now I recently got triggered. And when it did get triggered, it was in a particular situation that I don't often find myself in, where I'm with the boss and the boss of my boss and all the rest of it, and I challenge him.
Yeah.
That is simply a unaddressed issue that he then can work on and resolve. But it's a huge difference between getting triggered all the time, feeling anxious all the time, being scared of everything all the time, to, oh, you're not getting triggered anymore for like a long period of time. And so that's how you make progress. Frequency of anxiety begins to decrease. So instead of getting triggered 50 times a week, you get triggered 40 times and then 30 times and then 20 times. And the intensity, instead of it being 10 out of 10, it's a 8 out of 10, and then it's a 5 out of 10 and a 3 out of 10. And duration, when it comes up, instead of being the anxious the whole evening, it's just the first 20 minutes or the first 10 minutes or 5 or 3, and it goes away quicker and quicker. So it becomes less intense. You experience it less frequently, and it stays around for less long. So that starts to show up. Now, when you're in a place that things are nice, like Jan is describing, it's like, well, I'm just in a nice place now. I'm not getting triggered at my work, so I'm in my comfort zone there. I'm not triggered here. I'm not triggered there. That's good, but I'm not at level 5. So in other words, there are still areas where, and that might be the case for me too. Maybe if I get into public speaking, who knows? I still got some things that trigger me. 5 years ago, I started salsa dancing. I had never done that. Now I walk into the dance floor all clumsy and dorky, with everyone looking super cool around me. And I'm asking girls to dance, and I know that they don't want to dance with me because, I look like a dork and I can't dance yet. And so that had some anxiety coming up for me and some unaddressed things. But I didn't experience social anxiety anymore in general. But now that I was going to start a new venture like salsa dancing, there was some little bit of anxiety that needed to be addressed. Same thing when I started podcasting. I'd never done that. Now I was going to interview all these superstars of the tapping and the psychology world. Okay, and I worked through that first 2 or 3 podcasts. Yeah, I was a bit anxious. Okay, I worked through that. I grew through that. So that's kind of like the path. Yeah. Okay. What do you like most about the change that you've made?
Good question. I guess that, well, that's a really good question. I mean, like, the reason I'm doubting a bit is because, as weird as it sounds to myself that I'm uttering those words now, but I mean, I had this anxiety for such a long time, at least like a decade, and it took me like so much effort and energy to overcome it. Um, but now it's like, yeah, it almost feels as if like it's something from the past. Like, so it
Mm,
kind of feels like as if like, I don't know, getting invited to a party or going on a date, or just like meeting colleagues or like friends I haven't seen in a long time. Just feels like something like I actually like, and I'm not like worried like, oh, what if this gonna happen? I mean, sometimes it happens. I mean, it wouldn't be entirely true if I said it never happens, but I have well, really, again, because of the club, I still have all the tools and techniques to like change my thinking when it's very negative, or to address some specific situations. So in other words, I'm just like looking forward to like most situations instead of like dreading them. I feel like I'm a lot more happy with myself, and I'm like a lot more at ease with myself, which is like, well, I think for me, kind of but I know this is like a very personal observation, but that is for me, I think, a very important marker of success. I mean, it's for me really not about money or anything. I mean, of course, it's good that you have enough so you can, like pay your bills and stuff. But I remember in the past, I wanted to become like very rich, and I'm now like, no, if I can stay happy in my own skin and be comfortable with myself and be comfortable around other people, then I think I'm quite successful.
mm,
And there are some people, and they might say, well, that's a very low bar. Well, fair enough, you can say that. But yeah, does
mm.
did that answer your question a bit?
Well, yeah, like how you feel about yourself is huge. If you're happy with yourself and you like who you are and you accept who you are, then you kind of project it onto other people and you anticipate people to feel that way towards you too.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
if you contrast that to what you said earlier, that you were very worried about people not liking you, that's a testament to the change you made. So yeah, awesome, nice. Okay, let me ask you a bunch of rapid fire things. Um, da-da-da-da-da.
As you, sorry to interrupt, as you pick your rapid fire questions, I just remember what I wanted to say when I lost my train of thought. And I think it's important to share this. So the reason I think I'm not in stage 5 yet, so in the stage where it's like completely effortless social ease and stuff, is because I've discovered, and this is also what was so valuable about the tapping and this whole journey, I've discovered along the way that there were other issues that were actually more important that needed to address, that some were or some were not like related to the anxiety. So, for example, as I said, with this drinking, that had become like quite a serious problem, to the degree that it was affecting my life negatively. And I was like, hey, I have to do something about this. And again, I also did this with EFT. I worked with one of the guests, with Sophia, on this. Still working with her on this. The biggest part of it is gone, but then yeah, along this journey, you kind of feel like, okay, the anxiety is gone now, or it's gone. It's like a lot less. But now there's like this problem, which is like also not so good, and maybe I can work on this, and then work on this, and as you work on it, and as time progresses, you become like more whole, and yeah, it's a good feeling.
Hmm. Yeah, he's referring to Sophia Collier, one of the EFT masters. So every month we have a guest expert who comes and chats with the group, kind of takes over my role. And, I get to sit back on a Sunday, which is kind of nice. All right, let's see. Mm, do you remember what it was like when you joined the club in the first month?
Awkward.
Yeah.
Oh, oh no.
Say more.
Okay, no,
No, I
I can.
mean, it's,
No, it was
yeah.
like, oh, I was having the impression I should like give like one word or one sentence answer.
Oh, like that. Oh, one. No, not that rapid fire. I mean,
Okay.
like a little bit more awkward
Okay,
because, or
it was
what? Yeah.
awkward. I was like, yeah, yeah. I remember the first time when I was like, I want to say physically, but it wasn't physically. It was like virtually, so via Zoom, on Zoom. When I was joining the Hangout, I was like, this is really not necessary for me. Why am I do the this? Yeah. like all this crap, which was like just resistance, like to at least that's now what I think. So that was kind of what I thought like the very first time. But as time progressed, I could see very quickly that there was a lot of potential for healing inside the club, and
Mm.
that was awesome. Yeah.
And did you show up on camera right away, or?
Not the first time, did I? Pretty sure I did not the first time. Perhaps later in the session, but at least not like at the beginning of the beginning. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, what was most helpful about the webinars for you?
You have a lot of
As you
good
can
questions.
see, he doesn't know anything about the questions because I'd like to keep it.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's thrown in the deep quite a bit, but yes. So just
What did I like most about the webinars? There were so many things I liked. I well, liking science sounds a bit weird in this context. It was very helpful for me to see that there were other people made of blood and cells, like me, who were like struggling with this issue. That gave me like a lot. Yeah, that just alleviated my suffering already a lot to see that I was not alone there. What was also very interesting and helpful was to see how personal the anxiety is, in the sense that I remember there was this other member of the club who was talking about that his social anxiety would be like really bad around what was it, around like friends, but with strangers he was perfectly fine. And I was like, huh? For me it's like completely the opposite, at least at that point in my journey.
mm,
um, and that was so interesting to me, and that kind of reaffirmed in my head that I was like, well, perhaps it is actually possible to overcome this if I see how like personal this is and how specific this is. There must be some beliefs that are causing this, and so that was very helpful. Um, yeah, what else? I mean, it was
so
also, yeah.
so sounds like you would then get insights into your own beliefs
Yeah,
by
oh,
listening
many.
to that other person.
Yeah, oh, so many, so many. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
mean, yeah, I remember from these hangouts, and yeah, I'm not sure how the club is structured currently at the moment, but well,
We have
back
a monthly
then,
hangout now. Yeah,
a monthly
monthly
hangout,
hangout and weekly sessions.
a
Yeah.
weekly session. All right. It
Mm.
was well, it was a bit for everyone listening. It was a little bit different. I won't say back in the days, but it's not so long ago when I was there.
Year.
But it feels long ago, but it's not so long ago. But yeah, I just remember there was a lot of information during these hangouts. I found those especially useful because people were like asking questions and you were like working with them for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And that would give me a lot of insight. People would say stuff like, uh, no, I'm just making this up, but they would say, for example, like, yeah, I have this belief that I should be ashamed of myself. And I would hear that and I was like, oh, that actually really resonates with me. I should be ashamed of myself, but it's like really shitty belief to have, like should be ashamed of myself. I mean, it's not
Mm.
going to be very helpful socially if you feel that way. Yeah, and I would just like write that down and just work on that in my own tapping. So yeah, to go long story short, many things.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Um, all right. People are often afraid that being in the club is painful. Was it a painful process?
No. Yeah, it depends how you define painful, of course, but no, I mean, of course, I remember like being coached, well, a couple of times, but once or twice I was discussing some issues that were like extremely sensitive to me. But I mean, that wasn't painful. It was challenging, but I always felt like that with you. I was like in, as we say in Dutch, in goede handen. I was like I was
In good
getting
hands.
in good hands, exactly. Um, So no, was it painful? No, I didn't find it painful. No.
Okay. Big open question. What did you like most about the club?
There are such big questions, Sam. What do you like most? There are so many things I
Next
like.
time.
I mean, I think that depends on where you are in your journey and where you're looking. But for me now, um, I think just everything I learned about like psychology in general and about like these rules and about okay, I will give a very brief example of this. I remember that once you said in the club, yeah, like obviously I'm free of the anxiety now, and but sometimes I just wake up and I'm like not feeling well, like so, and not like physically, but like mentally, I'm like a bit grumpy or whatever. And then you shared, and I really like that, and I still use it a lot, sometimes to this day. Like suddenly, so again, this is what Seb said. Suddenly, I had this thought in my mind, um, like I don't want to feel good today. It was something along those lines, and I
Mhm.
was like, and that's so interesting. So sometimes when I wake up, and for example, like now I'm having like day off from work, and I would be not so feeling so well, like mentally. Then I would be like tapping a bit, like okay, for example, I release all my emotional attachments to I. That was the sentence. Um, I don't want to feel good today, and then
Yes.
stuff like that, and that is like so helpful, to have like better quality of life in general, that kind of stuff. um
Yeah. Let me
yeah.
provide some context about that one in particular. So what I shared was that sometimes when I notice that when I'm not feeling good, I recognize, wow, there's actually a part of me that does not want to feel good.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and so when you verbalize that feeling of that particular part of you, you neutralize that emotion. So when you're saying, I don't want to feel good, I want to have a bad day, I don't want to feel good at all, I don't like, for example, that then allows that particular part, it that part is heard, and it is accepted, and that then takes away the resistance to feeling good. You no longer have that in stopping you from feeling good, and that can be 20 seconds or 30 seconds sometimes. And then instead of having a bad day and it getting worse and worse and worse, often enough, it stops going in the bad direction, and now you can actually move towards a good feeling day. This is just like something that I probably at some point shared within a session,
Yeah,
something that you picked up on.
exactly.
Right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
and I mean, yeah, that's just one example of things that were very helpful. And I think also the better feeling thought exercises, which is like very short, like essentially a writing exercise for everyone listening who's unfamiliar with it, which is like a writing exercise where you notice that sometimes you have like very negative thinking in a certain area, socially or otherwise. You can kind of challenge your thinking. Very simple, straightforward exercise, extremely helpful. At least for me, it was extremely helpful. I'm still
Mm,
doing that these days, like not so often
mm,
anymore, but sometimes I notice it, and I'm like, I'm really really negative about this. Like I should probably do some writing about this.
right, right.
Yeah.
So I promote the tapping a lot because the tapping is the big thing that it's the big hammer, so to speak. Um, but it's a combination of the best of traditional psychology with the best of energy psychology, and most well known of that is the tapping. But sometimes it's very helpful to challenge particular thinking. Certain mindsets are quite essential in order to overcome this issue. Certain concepts in psychology and philosophy are really necessary, like self-compassion and self-acceptance and that kind of stuff. So that's being taught over and over. Yeah, good. All right, we got to wrap it up. Last question. Would you um, would you recommend the club? If so, why? I know
Yes.
this.
This it's very sweet of you that you leave the easiest question for last.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate that. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, yes. I mean, well, why? Because of everything I just said. Let me see if there was anything that I wanted to say, perhaps in support of this. No, it's like the way it is structured. I mean, tapping tapping can be so big and so overwhelming, especially if you're new to it, or even if you're experienced. I think, and if you have a place like the club, person like Seb, where it's structured in a very good way, in a way that has been tested, proven to be effective. Because I'm not the only person of the, let's say, the batch from 2 years ago who has left the club now. I'm sure. Um, yeah, then you can save yourself so much time and trouble. And assuming that you want to get rid of this sooner rather than later, then I think, yeah, being enrolled in the club is really good. And also because I mean, perhaps now it's different. I don't know that, but back in my days, so to speak, it was not like when you sign up for the club, you have to stay for 2 years. I mean, you could.
Hmm.
Was it
No.
like it was on a monthly basis, right? Or is it still? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I do have to say, and this is perhaps something which is good to mention. Although the club is really really effective, do not expect the anxiety to be gone in a day. I mean, you can make like a lot of progress in one day, honestly. I mean, if you're, for example, can just already get a bit more acceptance on the symptoms of the anxiety or the fact that you have the anxiety, uh, that can make that made for me such a big difference already to be like accepting of the anxiety. That was already for me like 40% of the problem, which took me like 3 years to get to that 40%. But okay, I mean, everyone at his pace.
Mm. It's different people that go at different speeds. It just
Speeds.
depends. Everyone has their own path, and some people stay on board for 3 months. Some people stay on board for several years. It just depends. And you know, yes, it's on a monthly basis, and people can come and people can leave whenever they want. They can't come back because we only start at the beginning of the year. So you can only come back at the end, once a new season starts, because we work in modules, and it all builds on each other. But um, you can leave at any point, and if you've completed a year, you can come back at any point, at any moment.
Yeah,
So yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing
my
your
pleasure.
experience, and especially for doing this live and last minute, unprepared. It's yeah,
Very
I
true.
appreciate it very much. Appreciate it
Oh,
very much.
cheers a
Thank
lot.
you.
Now, I also appreciate, yeah, that you are willing to give me this opportunity, that I can be here, share my story. Really hope that some people could relate to that, or it offers a glimpse, or maybe a little bit more than a glimpse of hope to those who are now severely suffering. I've been there, so I know it's very difficult. Yeah, I just hope that that some people had some insights today. That would be
Mm,
good. And yeah,
mm.
cheers again to you, Seb.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Cool. Okay. So, Leah,
Yeah,
how's it going?
good.
Okay. All right, just checking. Okay. All right. So, two things. First of all, to join the club, you can go to bit.ly/social confidence club. That's bit.ly/social confidence club. Leo will put it in the chat window, I'm sure. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Jan will be gone. Becca is here. I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago. Huh?
Yeah, if someone has a question you'd like to ask, I can free up 4 more minutes. So if someone has a question he or she
Okay,
would
if
like
you
to
have
ask, I will just.
get it going. Okay, good. And
So
we
you have
John
4
here
minutes.
as
I don't
well.
want to put any
4
pressure
minutes.
on
Real
anyone,
quick.
but you have 4 minutes.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll just look at the previous question. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand or just type it up in the chat window. Let me just see if I missed any. Leah, you're on watch. Okay, Rose.
Yeah, you said that you you did other forms of therapy as well. So did you do it alongside this, or did you do it? Did you decide to stop doing those other forms of therapy and choose to just do this one on it by itself?
For you, Jan.
This was a question for you. Do you mean with other kinds of therapy the exposure that I mentioned?
Yeah.
No, I stopped that. I was actually also doing some psychotherapy, but that didn't really work. I didn't have a very good connection with the therapist, but it's a different story. No, I was just doing this, and what also really helped in terms of like to keep it all manageable was to stick to like a schedule that was quite, like fixed for me. Not every minute was planned, but to get your sports, to get your physical exercise in, that really helped a lot to stay healthy here while in this process. So no, to answer your question, I didn't continue the other therapy. No.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'll just answer a real quick question that I saw from Dexter. Do triggers mean memories? So how I thought that it was before is like people trigger me and situations trigger me. But I've kind of refined that understanding, and it's more like people and situations are the cue or the stimulus, and it then triggers inside of me unprocessed memories, emotionalized thoughts, and negative fantasies. So a negative fantasy might be like I'm thinking that I'm going to get rejected. A negative thought might be like they're judging me. And a memory, well, you know what a memory is. So it's people and circumstances that trigger beliefs, memories, and fantasies. All right, so
One question in the chat section.
yeah, okay.
For
Jan.
Jan, what did make you join the club since you already worked with Sebastiaan before and it didn't bring the desired result?
Hopelessness. I'll be honest. I was like, I am not gonna stop. I'm like, from my personality, very persistent. I'm like, I'm not gonna stop. I really want to overcome this, and I'll try it again, and I'll try it 10 times again. And it was like that. And it was not only hopelessness. I mean, I shouldn't, but it was mostly, I was like, okay, like you said, I worked with Seb, it didn't work. But I thought this was a couple of years ago. Now it's different. Yeah, it was like, let's just give it another go. And this time it did work. So yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Katerina.
By the way, I have Becca and John, who are current club members, on the spotlight as well. Just saying that out. Thank you, Becca and John, for being here. But if you have any questions for them, please feel free to do so as well.
Okay. How about
I will be leaving. Sorry. So guys, thank you very much. Becca, good to see you again.
Thank you so much, Jan. Appreciate it.
Cheers. You. Cheers, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
See you. Okay. I will just ask this to should I answer this? No. Okay. And I ask Becca, are the changes subtle or obvious over time? I think Dexter is saying, Dexter, please confirm if this is true. Are the changes subtle or are they all of a sudden? Is that what you mean? Yes. There you go. What was your experience, Becca?
For me, they've been subtle and they've been gradual. Like I wouldn't in the sessions, I wouldn't necessarily feel that something had happened in the hour and a half. Like I was, like the session before with Amanda, I was yawning away like crazy. So I know something's happening for me, but I wouldn't suddenly leave and feel like I'm going to take on the world. But I would find myself in a situation reacting differently, being more comfortable, and surprising myself with how it's a different scenario, it's a different experience for me than it had been the last time I'd been in the same situation.
Mm.
And so some situations would get easier and easier each time, like even if it's been like a week or 2 months, whatever, between them. And just different situations that I wasn't expecting anything to happen. Then afterwards, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Feel better after that one this time.
Nice, nice. And for you, John?
Yeah, I would say both. So like subtle the whole way through, and then there's some kind of, maybe after like a practitioner call, like a deep dive after an hour, I'd feel like unstoppable, and then somebody would get triggered again. So I'd say both.
Right, right. So John did work significantly with practitioners alongside doing the work in the club. So he's saying after a private session, a one-on-one deep dive, then he'd feel like a big shift and a big change. So this is also something that you can consider. Inside the club, we'll have a list of at least 30 practitioners that I particularly recommend that are really great to work with. They're not necessarily social anxiety trained yet. I'm going to start that. Well, let's just say I intend to start that between 3 and 6 months. I've had talks with Steve Wells, who trains these practitioners, and these are already very experienced therapists who also do tapping, and they're gonna start being trained in social anxiety, how to address social anxiety. But like once they become available, probably end of the year. It just takes a bit of time. I need to find time for things, but okay, cool. Next question, and I want to answer that myself as well. For me, typically, like in general, it's just subtle changes. Oh, okay, this doesn't bother me. It's not like, oh my God, I feel supremely confident in this situation. No, it's rather, it's like, oh, I don't feel anxious here, or oh, I feel comfortable here, or this doesn't bother me anymore. It's not this hyped up state. It's rather an absence of insecurity or an absence of shame or an absence of anxiety. So you're not going to change into somebody else. You're just going to feel safe being who you truly are. I like also what you said in your interview, John. It's like, oh, I'm kind of just more chill. I'm just more relaxed about things. All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thoughts on the Unseen Therapist by Gary Craig? I don't know it. I know he does it, but that's it. Respect for Jan. Thanks to Amanda and Jan. I agree. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Jan. Can you go over the I want to be blah, blah, blah versus I need to be statements? Well, I can briefly explain it. I need to be is like, I need to do this or else. So in other words, I need to be cool or else I'll get rejected. So that's a particular perfectionistic belief that has emotion attached to it. So if you believe I need to be cool because otherwise I'll get rejected, then when you're in a social situation, you're like, that causes you to tense up. You're walking a tightrope. Whereas I want to be cool, that's okay. Who doesn't? It's like, it's okay. If I'm on a dance floor, yeah, I want to look cool, but I don't need to look cool. It's okay if I don't. So that's it. Hope that explains it. If not, ask a follow-up. Thank you all. Jan is handsome. Becca is beautiful, so the people here. I think that anxiety sufferers often have nice appearance. Hope you have a healthy mind. Thank you for sharing. Someone from Vietnam, I think, Dien Dong, which I'm off to in 2 weeks. All right, I think we're running out of questions unless I am missing anything. Leah? Yes, that's it? All right. Well, then I want to thank you very much for being here, supporting everyone, tapping along. Appreciate you. And, the details of the club are there, bit.ly, Social Confidence Club. Come join us. We can help you. We'll do this together. And it's going to be a jolly good time. All right. How long is registration open? 2 more days. Leah, correct? 2.5 days. February 28th, minute before midnight Eastern Standard Time is when we close. Cool. If you still have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Just send them to Leah at socialanxietysolutionsva@gmail.com. And have a good Sunday. All right. Ciao. Bye, everyone.